for joining us, guys. My name is Michael Holliday. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I am the platform curator for Chocolate City's Best, also partner in an amazing cocktail bar here in Washington, D.C. This panel today was put together to examine the Black and Brown entrepreneur experience and stimulate conversation and action that will educate, encourage, and connect our industry to the next generations of producers and entrepreneurs. We're talking about equity here, right? Equity, not equality. Equality and equity are completely different. Equality is saying that everyone will be treated the same. What we are talking about is equity, meaning that we're going to make sure every person has access to support and resources they need to be successful in our industry. Equity requires putting systems in place to ensure everyone has the chance of success. That requires understanding the unique challenges and barriers faced by individuals and providing additional support to help them overcome these boundaries. I want for you guys who are attending this panel and watching us all across the world to feel part of this community and part of this reconstruction of our industry. I want for you guys to have the knowledge and the space to understand the potential that access makes our entire industry better. I believe that equity in our industry starts with education. So I'm going to start with Rob McCaughey. Rob, you want to join me?
We have a boss down here. Woo, yeah!
He's a senior commercial developer managing for the WSET. He has 25 years of experience in the hospitality and beverage industry. So thanks for joining us, Rob.
Thank you.
Oh, of course.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So Rob, I have just a couple of questions for you. Sure. Can you tell us about your experience that makes you passionate about creating more diverse, equitable landscapes through wine and spirit education?
Sure, would be happy to. So yeah, you made me feel really old there saying I have 25 years experience, but obviously being a middle-aged white man, English as a first language comes with some privileges. And I think I've had a lot of opportunities put before me because of, where I've worked, who I've worked with, opportunities that I've had. And that's a position of privilege that I think comes with some responsibility as well. And part of my role at the Wine and Spirit Education Trust is to kind of rethink who we are and what we do. And we are a charitable trust. And that's something that we don't always appreciate ourselves internally, let alone talk about enough outside of our own four walls. And it's, what does that really mean? And how do we move from what has historically really been a British organization to an organization that's much more global in its scope? And how does that mean we have to rethink what we do and who we put our materials and our opportunities in front of? And I think historically, we've maybe not done as great as we could have with that. There's a very much an Anglo-centric vibe to a lot of the things that we have historically produced, whether that's the lexicon and the language that we use, whether that's making some of our educator materials available in multiple languages, and whether that's having the resources in the ground in different communities to make sure that people who don't know about us can understand the opportunities that can be provided with a WSET qualification. So part of my role here in the Americas was really to kind of have a think about that and think about, we have a lot of white educators, we have a lot of English speaking educators, and that's not really reflective of the broader community. So how do we change that paradigm so that people see people who look like them and then can have that aspiration to get involved in the beverage industry? And that was, there's lots of great people like yourselves, like Toure, who's on this panel as well, who are doing phenomenal work. So part of my role was just connecting with people already working in these spaces to fill in the gaps in my knowledge and my experiences to make sure that I'm asking the right questions and that we're creating the right opportunities for people. So, whether that's as simple as just providing free courses and scholarships, although I think that on its own is really not enough. You have to make sure people can afford to buy product. They might need to travel to get to places. So who are the partners we can work with that can help us make our qualifications accessible and then provide that ongoing support, whether it's mentorship, whether it's access to people within the community who might have jobs available, and understanding that it's more than just a pre-qualification that we give someone or a certificate. It's about starting them on a career that can actually help them pay it forward. And then it creates this kind of self-perpetuating landscape that's absolutely more reflective of the communities in which we live. So it's great fun, and it's an honor to be involved with these kind of projects. But it's a shame that, you know, we're in a position where, I mean, I look at WSET and we have, you know, 800 providers around the world, and most of them are white and most of them are straight. And it's like, you know, how do we get into communities where we're underrepresented so that we can show people that there's an opportunity for them as well? So right now, a lot of work in the US, but also looking at opportunities in Latin America as well, the Caribbean, you know, places where we're underrepresented and underserved, and making sure that people have equitable access to our qualifications, however that might need to happen.
I really like when you speak on coming to communities and not having like a savior's mentality, but touching ground with people who are already doing the bootstrapping work to change these communities. I think that's the true definition of like providing access and equity, and also working together. And I really appreciate everything that you're doing here with Talk to These Best and other programs across the world, right? I look forward to working with you and yeah, introducing you to other great people that can use your access.
Well, absolutely. And you know, if anyone wants to kind of call us out or call us to action, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to speak to people who feel like there's an opportunity for us to get involved. And yeah, I'm easy to find.
Yeah, well, today we have a panel. We have a plethora of amazing people who yeah, would probably love to collaborate with you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Take care.
Well, as Rob said, the work starts with the community leaders and working together and seeking out people who are already on the ground, putting in the efforts to give access to equity in our industry. That brings me to our, what I believe is the foundation, our community leaders, those people who are already putting in the work to ensure that our industry will continue to provide equity to all people and become greater than ever before. So I would like to start by introducing my hometown, DC, my crew, Chocolate City's best, Denaya and Kapri.
Hey, that's fine. Hey,
How you guys doing? Well, Kapri, being that you are founder, president of Chocolate City's Best, can you please tell the people the amazing work that we work really hard to do?
we do lots of different things. I would say one of the main things that we do is our competition that's annual and coming up soon. But we definitely are building a competition. We want it to be one of the biggest competitions for Black and Brown faces in the industry as a whole. This competition partners the competitors with mentors so they can get further education and feel, you know, grounding in their career. We go ahead and give them different experiences that they may not have experienced before. That's different brand dinners, that's distillery tours, that's finding their way through DC. We partner them with everything that they can hopefully possibly need for the competition so they don't feel like they needed to provide themselves. And that is one of the biggest things that we do. We also do things called Beyond the Bar, where we pretty much put on a spotlight on people that are in the industry doing really great things and just making examples of why this is a career, why this can be what you do for the rest of your life, and why it's an amazing time in the food and beverage industry. Coat drives, online educational seminars, and having those hard topics and conversations, right? We're constantly trying to push the buttons. You know, we just, lots of different type of things that we've done.
Great. And Rob's not here with us present for no reason. We strive really hard to push education. And Denaya, can you please speak on your experience here with Chocolate City's Best and the access is granted with education, the doors open, and what you are also contributing with Chocolate City's Best to allow access to the next generation?
Yeah. So for starters, I'm Denaya Jones. I am content curator for Chocolate City's Best. And when it comes to, are we talking like solely WSET or
No,
just in general?
in general.
Okay. So I'm the first winner of Chocolate City's Best annual competition. So literally from 2018 forward, it has been nothing but exposure to more education and more opportunities and a much larger picture in terms of what I was able to see as potential for my career in hospitality industry. So CCB has definitely opened up a lot of doors in that regard for me. And most recently, our involvement with WSET is just another example of one of those things. Having the opportunity to go through these courses of, well, first doing level 2 and then now doing level 3 and then soon enough, being able to go through the educator's course is something that was always on my bucket list in terms of educational kind of benchmarkers to do. I didn't even think about it as an option of something to be able to have access to via sponsorship, which has been great. And it's something that CCB has directly facilitated for all of us and for not only winners of the competition, but also people who have applied for our scholarship directly. Which is one of the initiatives that we have done during this time during COVID, to be able to offer some more educational opportunities to people who have either lost their job during COVID or are looking for a way to create some more longevity and some more staying power since COVID. It's just been an amazing thing.
Yeah.
It has definitely been, it's been wonderful. CCB is definitely, I really appreciate our emphasis on highlighting education.
Yeah, again, I love you guys, and the work that we're doing is amazing. But I think we all agree one of the best things about our industry is when we travel and we find like-minded individuals. So if you're ever in New Orleans, you definitely have to talk to Toure. I see you, Toure, out there coming your way. Toure, folks, if you can please tell people about the amazing work you're doing with Turning Tables NOLA out in New Orleans.
Sure. Very similar to Chocolate City's Best. Turning Tables is a very localized effort. We advocate for equity in the hospitality industry, providing mentorship, training, and access to adjacent career pathways. So our first year was very successful. We were able to place all of our students into different bars across the city. And they were mostly younger up-and-coming bartenders. And then the second year, through COVID, we noticed that there was more of a thirst, not only from younger bartenders that didn't have access, but also there were some people that had been bartending for a while and not been given opportunities. So we've realized there's some unpolished talent that just needed access to opportunities and be shown that they could bar manage, or they could segue into other like sales or brand ambassadorship. This year we're including distilling, brewing. We're working with people locally to kind of flip the script in those industries as well. And so education is a very important part of what we do. And we noticed through our access, 5 out of 7 students this year decided to take WSET level 1 and level 2, which was sponsored by Remy Cointreau. And then a local wine store also gave people access to wine training, and they're using those skill sets to excel into different facets locally in management. And some people want to have ambitions of going into other markets. So we noticed also that when the application process started this year, that people from other markets applied for the program. So there's like a thirst for programs like this throughout the country. And there's people in this room that we partnered with, including Josh Davis, Chocolate City's Best, as well as Hella Bitters. All those people have been, Tracie Franklin as well, have all been facilitators or educators or collaborators in the process. So we also want to put them in access to different people of color in the room as much as possible, people in our industry that are doing things, access to our own history and spirits, and also our connection to history and spirits, connection to history and cocktail culture. It's all part of the same kind of thread. And these are things that we want to continue to provide access for. And we can already see from this year is going to be a really special group. I mean, they're all special, but as we continue to grow, I think the opportunities for what we can provide and like working with people nationally is going to continue to happen. And like, we're really excited for all the possibilities of what turntables can do, especially with our partners in this room and the people in this room. And we're excited for creating more equity in the hospitality industry. And not only through spirits, but working with, like I said, we work with restaurants. We're starting to go into consulting realms. So like, you'll start to see us show up a little bit more visibly in some of the restaurants locally. And so that's also something you can look forward to. And I think I might have reached my time limit, so I'm gonna go.
No, you're fine. Always good to hear from you. And also, I remember when we were teaching a class for the 2020 class about turning tables, know how excited the individuals were for knowledge and how passionate they were. And you're doing great work. So you did mention Josh Davis, right? So Josh Davis, Brown and Balance, what I thought was just an amazing party. He turned into a lot of access to opportunities in this industry. Josh, can you tell us how that started and what you guys are doing now to utilize education to build career opportunities such as apprenticeship?
Absolutely, man. Well, first, before I even get started, I just want to say thanks for having me on this. There's a lot of people on this that I look up to. There's a lot of people on this panel that I don't know yet that I hope to know eventually. There's a few people on here that's been super instrumental in what Brown and Balance has become. But we're actually coming up. This week is the 4-year anniversary. July 31st, 2017 was the very first Brown and Balance at Shoals Service Bar in Dallas, Texas. And the way it started was I was on the road. I partnered with Lush Life Productions. And when I was on the road teaching and giving classes and doing different things, I just didn't see enough people that looked like me. Myself and Ashton Berry, which I'm sure everybody on this panel knows, we were on the road. We were doing 20, 30 cities, and it was just us. And Brown and Balance started really to just identify and celebrate that there's a ton of other Black bartending talent all across the United States. As I was on tour, someone real influential in this industry, I'm not gonna say his name, but he put a status on the internet and said, I can't name 10 Black bartenders in the United States. And I rambled off 50 off the top of my head in his comments. And that's what Brown and Balance became. It really was just to identify and just really celebrate you guys. I mean, you're a Brown and Balance alumni, Toure is. It's just so many of us out here. So we start off as just a party to just put you guys in front of the brands. And then, after 3 years of that, unfortunately, we had COVID last year. And we kind of moved over to a virtual space where instead of just having the fun times, we started to attack social justice issues. And we started to tell the stories of all of us that have very, very humble beginnings in this industry and how we got to the point to where we're at now, to the point where you can have Chocolate City's Best, to where Toure can have, his turning tables and, really just getting those stories out there and really just showing people that this hospitality industry has been built on our backs since the beginning of time. And we want it back, period. That's just what Brown and Balance is to continue to push the envelope and really push us in front of all of the people that need to know who we really are.
And you're doing a great job at it. Again, I can't wait to see all you guys and continue to build our community and trailblaze and continue being gatekeepers and access to equity in our industry. Thank you guys for being here. As we know, there are racial and gender disparities in the beverage industry. Equitable programming, which was not created to produce equal outcomes or experiences for everyone. These structures, past and present, maintain inequity by design. This inequitable systems were not created, like I said, by accident. So new liberating systems must be designed with conscious intention and shared versions or visions of a desired future. So up next, I have Tracie Franklin. Tracie Franklin is a whiskey educator, consultant, public speaker, bartender, and recently distillation apprentice. She received Whiskey's Magazine Icon Whiskey Award for Best U.S. Scotch Whiskey Ambassador. She is currently studying distillation and leadership in the Nearest and Jack Advancement Initiative Leadership Acceleration Program. Tracie, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm actually in the midst of a program. I'm here at Catoctin Creek in Percival, Virginia. They are getting new distillery equipment, so I came down to watch the installation and kind of ask questions to just put my nose where it shouldn't be. But having an absolute wonderful time and happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Always, always. Tracie, what roles did access to education play in your career?
Well, I was really lucky that I was in New York, so I had Jackie right there beside me. He'd already like broken down some doors. I had, so I had a community that was growing out there that the USBG was really strong at that point. So as I was performing, so I come from the theater, so I was performing and bartending was kind of my side gig. I needed to do that while I was out auditioning. But there was so much support and so much education in that community. And there weren't a lot of people that were hungry the way that I was. I realized I really wanted to know more. And the brands at that time were really providing access. So everything I asked for, I was able to get. So as soon as I started getting into the USBG and really wanting to get education, I started going out to distillery visits and being able to sit down with ambassadors and representatives and really dig deep into the industry and figure out what it was that I loved. And as I realized there weren't that many people that looked like me, back behind the bars, really. There weren't that many people. And this is in New York City, because there were very specific things they were looking for, especially within fine dining and certain areas within the industry. So trying to figure out how I could make my way into those positions to kind of squeeze and open up those doors to allow space for other people to enter. And the education was there, but via USBG New York. But also once I told other people how hungry I was and what I wanted, then people were like, okay, great, I can give that to you, but you have to also know what you want and what you need to get to where you're going. Unfortunately, sometimes we also don't know what you don't know. Yeah. So it's hard, but as you start to grow, as you gain more education and more experience, those questions will come up. And I just say, ask for what you want. You got to go for it.
Yeah, you're totally right. You have to be advocate for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, and you had a great timing and great placement, right place, right time. And that's amazing. Well, you mentioned Jackie, but looking back, who are other people that helped you in this journey, or just maybe just moments in time or wise words that helped you get through and push through to where you are now?
Yeah, so I think that one of the things that's happening is I'm in the midst of a major shift. It's been about a year now that I've been in the Nearest and Jack Advancement Initiative. Prior to this, I was the ambassador for Glenfiddich Single Malt Scotch, one of the first Black people that we know of to represent a single malt Scotch as an ambassador for the company. And so I'm really excited to be able to have that behind me, but I'm also, I know that was something that I was kind of built for. I grew up in a community that was much more white. I went to schools that were pretty white, and I knew how to take a hit. I knew how to kind of brush things off my shoulders. And I think that that's something that was really important as I was coming through. But I also had people step up and simply say that they keep going. So Joy Spence came to Tampa while I was out there, and she was doing a blending seminar, and I pulled her aside and just said what I was thinking of doing, that I was really excited about distillation. And she was really adamant that I continue. She said, there's not enough women. And she really gave me a lot of inspiration to continue on my journey. Even just friends and having friends beside you that see the world the same way that you do. So honestly, I started Worski, which was a whiskey marketing company with Jennifer Wren, who also ended up working for Glenfiddich, but she was there and saw the struggle, but also we fought together to ensure that women weren't left out of the conversation. So by creating a group that was open to queerness, to women, to young, to old, to whatever it may be within the whiskey community, it's good to have that sidekick who's there, fighting the struggle alongside you. I don't know. There's so many opportunities. I mean, even just the conversation. I happened to be right place, right time, being on a panel with Fawn Weaver after when we were benefiting the distillery in Minnesota. And, after that, she gave me a call, and that is how all this fell together. So I think right place, right time. Dave Pickerel was a mentor who took me out to distilleries and said, you have the brain to do this. You are a built head distiller. every question that you ask. And right now I'm working with Kevin Smith from Jack Daniels. He's the head of fermentation there, and he's been really pushing me to continue asking big questions. And so honestly, the list is too long. I do want to give a shout out to Ashton Berry, who's forcing me to step into who I am every day. And the next question will probably lead to more of that conversation, but being able to look at this industry and understand where we are being inequitable, understand where my privilege has lied, and how I can change the world around that to ensure that there is more opportunity in general for everybody. Sorry, that was long.
No. I'm just, I know I'm loving it, so I'm sure others is loving it just as much. Can you give us like an overview of the skill sets that you acquired while in your apprenticeship program, or certifications, or like, what is it that you've been discovering about yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things is working for Fawn Weaver, who does not say no and who gets everything she wants. She expects the same from you. She expects that you walk in this world in complete confidence, that you understand where you're going, and that you build the world into what you need, and that you let go of the things that don't serve you. So that's something that I'm learning, because I haven't been good at that. I've definitely been someone who wanted to make sure that others around me were taken care of. I'm definitely very much hospitality driven, but to a point of being a people pleaser. So that is something that I've been working with, working to discover where those roots lie and how to uproot them so that I can really live and work for myself, for my pleasure, for my goals, and hit those targets in a new way, not in a way that suits me. So that's definitely something that I'm gaining and learning and growing with. But in a very practical sense, I'm studying currently with the Institute of Brewing and Distilling. I got my GCD, which is the General Certificate of Distillation, but I'm studying for my diploma, which there are 3 different programs to do that. WSET, I actually took the wine because I wanted to not think about distillation for a while. So I actually did my wine certification with them, but I've been thinking about going on and getting the third, the WSET 3 in spirits, and possibly educating, because I love to educate. That is also something I've discovered. I have been able to really build this program for where my holes are in my education, but in doing that, I've been able to take other programs and understand that I have an innate ability to educate, to inspire, and I want to do that because I think that we as a community don't have enough leaders who take the time to do that. Also, just because we don't have that many leaders in a position where they can. So please understand, this is not in any way to diminish anyone that's already out there speaking. It is to say, I want even more people. I want all of us to be out there and to be enabled, to be educated, to be empowered, to be a voice to help educate. I've taken, so I want to work on my distillation diploma. I have gotten my hazmat, my OSHA, I'm studying microbiology. It's just been an insane opportunity to learn. I'm now at Catoctin Creek. I was out at Westland. I'm going to Westland Distillery next week to go and study there. I came from Sagamore Creek a few months ago. So I'm hopping around to all of these amazing distilleries, learning and growing. And it's incredible how many people have stepped up to say, how can I help? I've also learned that people are ready and willing to make this change happen. And again, it's making sure that you know what you need so that you can ask and help those people get you to where you need to be.
Yes. You spoke of Fawn telling you to let things go, or things that do not serve you, to let those go. What other like sacrifices do you have to find yourself committing to bring out the best in yourself and others while you're on your path to equity in our industry?
Well, I think that one of it was really looking in the mirror and understanding where I have done harm. Each of us has done harm in some way, and understanding how you've done harm within the community by using your privileges to get to where you want to go, but forgetting that what got you there. So for me, I know that I was very much like I can be a chameleon. So when I needed to be in specific positions, I made sure I wore the right clothes, that I talked the right way, that I do, that I smile, that I do all these things, which doesn't always allow space for other people to come in and be themselves. I do think I was coming into the industry at a point where you kind of had to be that chameleon. You had to fit into the industry or you weren't accepted. The doors were simply shut. So now that I was able to work my way in, I had to do that by conforming. I had to do that by laying down a little bits and pieces of who I was, by changing the way that I spoke, by not speaking up at times that I probably should have. But now that I'm here, now that I've gotten in, those doors are opening, and I want to be the leader that's able to stand up and make and create safe spaces for people so that they don't have to have any of these, they don't have to lay down, and they can bring their full selves to work. They can really show up and bring true innovation and be full spirited in this industry, because it's what we need. It's incredibly important. And while I was able, because honestly, as an actress, I didn't feel like it was a huge sacrifice on my part. It's something I've done my whole life. What do you need me to be? Great, I'll do that. But I don't want other people who that is not a skill set to have to feel like they need to do that. And that's really, really important to me, that everyone is able to bring their full selves. There is no need for that to be a sacrifice. You may have to sacrifice some time in that you're gonna have to really sit down, you're gonna have to study, get that education. I still feel like we as Black people, I've always thought that we have to be 2 and 3 times better, smarter, know more, do better. And we still have a little bit of that to fight. And I'm not gonna, and as much as I want to say, I wish we didn't, it just is a reality. So I'm going to make sure that if people come to me and they want access to that education, I'm able to help them on that path so that we can stand up there being 2 and 3 times better, so that we can now run it. You know, let's start to run things. We need, the equity includes also being, you know, from the C-suite all the way down, we need representation.
Representation, for sure. Speaking of representation, you spoke on it. But what is the future with people like yourself and farm weavers at the helm? What does the future of apprenticeship opportunities look like for brown and Black individuals?
Well, I think that is something that is about to explode. There are a lot of groups currently working on different apprenticeship programs. Depending on what you want to do you want to go into marketing? Do you want to go into sales? Do you want to go into distillation? Do you want to go into brewing? Do you want to be a vintner? Like, what do you want to do? There is something that is coming for you. So there, the McBride sisters have something. There is something coming through Michael J. Jackson for brewing and for distillation. There's Brewers for Change. There is the American Craft Spirits Association that's going to be coming out with something. There's a Nearest and Jack initiative that I'm currently a part of. There are going to be a lot of opportunities. So I want people to be ready. What you have to do is understand where you want to at least start, what you want to learn, what your skill set is, and how you can bring that into the hospitality industry, how you can bring that into distillation or brewing or whatever it may be. Know what your skills are so that you can come in and then expand those. But if you're coming in completely blind, it's really hard. So making sure that you're getting whatever education you possibly can, experiences you can on your own, volunteering with your time if you can, if that's something that you can do. If not, completely understand, get paid for your time, but try to get to some education and take those WSET courses, take those online seminars. There is so much free education available online right now that there's really no excuse to not have that base to start from. But from that base, these apprenticeship programs are going to really allow people to get that kickstart into the industry. And I think that's going to make a huge difference. Currently, there is no pipeline. There is no pipeline that is to help people who are underrepresented. And this is an opportunity where they're literally seeking out people who've not been a voice in this community, and allowing us the opportunity to really step in and work and grow and become a part of this industry. So I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to create dramatic change. The more voices, the more palettes, the more mind you have, the better everything's going to become. All ships rise.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Tracie. You are more than a blessing in my life and to the industry. Thank you. Can't wait to see you and give you a great hug.
Oh, it would be great. I miss you.
I miss you as well. But as Tracie, as Tracie spoke, there are a lot of initiatives coming out for apprenticeship. Some of them are made by people on this panel. We're going to go into our winemakers, our brewers, and our producers. I'm going to actually start with Jomaree. Jomaree is the CEO of Helicopter Company. Jomaree has spearheaded creations and the building blocks of his company, going from $0 to a multi-million-dollar company. He's responsible for developing his entire business infrastructure and just growth. Jomaree, how you doing?
What's going on, family? How's everybody doing out there?
Oh man,
great conversation so far. Great panelists. I love it.
I'm glad you're here. I really appreciate you. You know this. Yeah, so I just want to get a couple questions in for you. What does equity look like for you in our industry?
Wow, big question. Wow, I mean, it's a tough one, and everyone's going to have a slightly different answer. I think a part of my answer is about owning the narrative, right? I think we all touched on it a little bit, and controlling the way we sound, the way that we're seen, the way that we show up in the industry is super important. And I want to be part of the vessel of people that are leading that narrative and that charge, because it's something that's a huge hurdle that we all have, right? And I think Tracie, spoke to it a bit, but just our style, right? Just the way we show up physically can be intimidating to people, which is crazy, right? The way, I have this New York accent, people are like, wow, he's aggressive, instead of he's a visionary, instead of he's the leader, instead of, right? And so we just have to hear the sound bites of our own voice and our own skin and the way we look and feel, so that it becomes more normal, so that everyone else gets a chance to walk right behind us and crack open and crush the doors open. So I'm happy to get into it, but there's a lot of people on the panel that can jump into.
Yeah, I want to pose that same question to Clyde Davis. Clyde Davis, he is a mentor of mine. He's been in the industry for over 20 years. He's the vice president of sales with Lano Rum. And if ever you are at any event that he's there, please pour this man a Negroni, a rum Negroni, of course, and cheers with him. He has a lot to offer. So Clyde, for you and your tenure here in the industry, what does equity look like for you?
For me, equity is about access, being able to access not just capital, but opportunities, even customers it's having access. Because I was telling someone the other day, we started our first company in 2002, which is almost 20 years ago. And literally people would never meet with us. The same people who are dying to talk to me now literally have me wait in their offices for like 6 hours, when I was a young entrepreneur. Now, to quote the late Biz Markie, like everybody's catching the vapors now. So, but I'm not but for me, it's about creating access, because I'm not asking to be equal to white people or to equal to anybody. I just want to be free from the oppression of the white patriarchy that how it exists right now. Because I'm smart enough, I'm capable enough, I'm creative enough to make my own way, but I need the roadblocks to be taken out my way. I don't want to be equal to anybody, but I just want that access. So I want to have the freedom to move the way I want to move, to create the things I want to create. And more than important to me now is creating those opportunities for people that I didn't have. My kind of mantra is trying to be the kind of person I needed when I was younger. Because when I was a young entrepreneur, knocking on those doors for distributors, not trying to get, bottles made and all this other stuff, there's nobody for me to talk to. Like I had the hardest $2 million raise of all time. I've never begged so much in my life, And that just wasn't a position where I like to be in. So now my initiatives are really about giving people opportunity and access to capital, to networks, to the right, people to do different things. So for me, it's not just about equity. It's just about equity is about access and giving equal access. And so when people see my name, they don't say, oh, that's a black guy out there waiting for me. Let him wait for 6 hours. They know what I mean? So that's what I'm really fighting for now.
And when you talk about access, there's a couple of people on this panel that really come up for me. And I really want to introduce Ntsiki Biyela. Ntsiki Biyela, she's the 2009, she was named best, in 2009, she was named Best Woman Winemaker of the Year. She was the first Black woman to be a winemaker in South Africa. She is the owner of Ellison Wine, which is named after her grandmother. But more than that, she sits on a board for PYDA, which is the sorry if I butcher this, the Pinotage Youth Development Academy. Ntsiki, how are you doing this, evening in South Africa?
Yes, it's evening. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
It's great to have you. Can you please speak to us on the importance of apprenticeship and what you guys are doing with the PYDA?
Okay, so I've been involved with the Pinotage Youth Development Academy since 2012. What we are doing, we are training young people through the value chain of the wine industry. I think one of the key things with our industry, I think like anywhere actually, the wine industry is just white. So as Black people, you see the industry, but you feel like I don't belong. So these are young people who are between the age of 18 to 25. They stay around the industry, but when you ask them anything that has to do with the wine industry, it's like, no, that's not where I'm supposed to be. No, that's not part of my space. I cannot be there. So it's to try actually and train them through that. Part of it is to change the industry, to bring more Black people into the industry. I think it's a shame, even currently, that when we do job placement, because while they're training, we take them to different companies where they do extra training. And the feedback from the students that they still get discriminated, that they still feel being eliminated in the conversation, that is whether it is through the language, because the industry speaks Afrikaans and they don't speak Afrikaans, or it's just through blatant ignorance and our students being ignored. So there's all those things that are happening. And also just for us as the board and also as people working in the academy, to try and make them understand, we intervene to these things. We meet with these people because the aim of teaching these youngsters is not just the value chain of the wine industry, but also giving them more personal development so that they can stand up to these issues, so that they can be able to speak up. Because even when I look back, when I was studying, I finished my studies, started working. Speaking up was not part of the things that you taught or that you're going to easily do, that easily come out of you. So it was one of the things that we said, it is important that they must be able to speak up for themselves. They must be able to understand, to say, you know what, I understand, I'm not fighting with you, but the way you're speaking to me, I'm human, you are human. So that they get to the level ground to say, actually, we all, at the level you are, yes, we're a manager, but we're still all human. So there's all those things. And I think we've also started talking to them about, that's part of the courses we have in the academy, it's entrepreneurship. Because at the end of the day, we know that you get trained to get employed, but we want them to get trained to be employed, so that the employment is a stepping stone for them to build a business. Because they're going to need employment for more training. Not everybody needs employment, but it is the key, especially when I look at my journey. I had to be employed to be able to build the social capital, to be able to build the experience, to be able to build all the alliances and meet people, so that when I start, I already have this social capital to utilize to build the business. So these are part of the characters or the qualities that we try and teach our students.
That's beautiful. You remind me so much of a mentor of mine, Celeste Beatty. Celeste Beatty, she is the first Black woman to own a brewery in the U.S. Celeste is the owner of the Harlem Brewery Company. She's also been in brewing for over 20 years, and she's opening Harlem Brewery South in North Carolina. How are we doing today, Celeste?
This is amazing. Thank you, Chocolate City and Michael, for the opportunity to just be in the room, to be inspired by everyone's story.
Celeste, I have a question. I know we've talked. I would like for you to share, when we talk about apprenticeship, what are you planning to do at Harlem Brewery South that will give job, career traits to Black and brown individuals?
Yeah, so first I just want to say that my first apprenticeship was literally taking the lead from homebrewing when I started in Harlem more than 20 years ago, and calling up a guy by the name of John Bluestein. He owned 3 or 4 brew pubs in Manhattan, and he had a brewery in Brooklyn. So I was like, oh, this is a big leap to go from homebrewing to open up a brewery, which, by the way, we never did. I ended up having a Brudio in Harlem where I teach classes. but it was just like many of you have echoed, so much support for me taking that leap in the industry. And John said, okay, Celeste, you want to learn how to do commercial brewing? You want to shadow our brewery in Brooklyn? Be there at 7 a.m. in the morning on XYZ brew day. And he said, first of all, don't get it twisted. You're not going to even be able to brew. So my first job was to actually clean kegs and learn how to mix the chemicals that are needed to clean and sanitize kegs. And I was like, okay, this isn't what I had in mind. But I was really appreciative of the opportunity to be able to learn how to do that on a commercial scale and be around the brew house and hear the conversations, as you said, Ntsiki, that were going on around me to give me the confidence to feel comfortable about being in a commercial brewery. And it was a really amazing experience that's inspired me to this day in terms of taking the leap from home brewing to commercial brewing. What we're looking to do here in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, which is where I'm sitting right now in this tobacco warehouse that we're converting into a teaching brewery, a living classroom of sorts, is to really be right in the heart of the community where people from our community can access the brewing equipment, the brewing space, to not only have an opportunity to learn the skills that are needed to brew, but to have meeting places, which is something that many of us have experienced in our communities. We don't really have those centers and places where you can even talk about who's home brewing and who's doing what to connect and collaborate. So aside from brewing here, we just want to make sure that people have a space to come to talk about beer, to enjoy beer, to connect and do all the amazing stuff that people discover when they go to a brewery. And we know there are more than 9,000 breweries across this country. And I probably count on two hands how many Black breweries there are, how many spaces and places there are in our communities where people can even have a good beer. So we have something that we're calling right now the Beer Desert Initiative, which is really focused on places that not only don't have breweries, but if you go to the local supermarket, you're not going to find too many craft beers, or you might find one or two, but to a large extent, the selections in terms of craft beer aren't even there. But more importantly, as you touched on earlier, Tracie, and several of you that have spoken, we need to have opportunities for people to learn some of the basics about what brewing is, to be able to form brewing clubs. Is that okay for Black people to have a brewers club? I mean, stuff that we do. I mean, this is, what's wrong with that? So we're really just trying to create a space here for people to come together, to connect, to collaborate, and have a discussion about brewing. So that's what we'll be doing in this space. We have an 8-week fast track brewing program that allows people to immerse themselves in the brewing, connecting with Black farmers that are growing the hops and growing the grains, and really creating a whole supply chain from growing the hops, grains that we'll use as much as possible. Not all the hops and grains will be grown because we have a lot of catching up to do that volume, but to at least link them to the experience of what happens along the supply chain with brewing. You've got to grow the hops, you've got to have the grains. So there's a huge movement, as we know, with Black farmers in this country, trying to connect them and trying to connect them specifically to the brewing industry. So want to connect them to that, get them into the brew house, and then teach them about how to do what you guys, many of you do so fantastically, operating a bar, learning about what that whole thing is. I've learned a lot over the years. A lot of my connection to the bar is about doing beer cocktails. Michael and I have been working on some projects about connecting people to craft beer through that entry point of showing them how craft beer and spirits connect, and wine too. So here in our Beer Desert Initiative is really about getting the community here and other communities like it totally immersed into what brewing beer is about, which touches on distilling and wine in some respects. We're really excited about that and welcome your ideas and collaborations. We can't do this by ourselves. It all happens through collaboration. I remember connecting with several of you actually through events. Hella, I think we did something at, where was it? Goldman Sachs. He was there and I had a chance to hear his story for the first time during the Black History Month event, talk about some ways we might work together, hopefully in the future. So I invite your collaboration. Any ideas you have about how we can work together to strengthen the apprenticeship program that we're working on here, I greatly appreciate it.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Celeste. I just got one more question for you, Jomaree. We had some time is limited, I apologize. What are different ways the next generation can acquire equity? I know we think of equity as ownership, but do you have any other ways that you think we can acquire equity?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're on the cusp of doing it. Like everyone on this panel, yourself, we're all doing it right now. I haven't coined this term, but I think about it in terms of the idea of living richly, and that means exactly what we're doing. We're paying it forward. We're galvanizing all of our intelligence, all of our experiencing, and say, here is some types of blueprints that you can follow. Right, here's the roadmap. It's not perfect. It's going to be choppy, but this is what it looks like, and putting it on Front Street, which usually doesn't happen, right? Because it's not cool to ask for help, right? That's something we've been trained, like you're supposed to know the answer, and we know that's garbage, right? So we're all here. We've all learned that asking for help, asking for mentors, having mentees, paying it forward and living richly is actually going to be one of the main answers to the question, right? The other part to that question is, you know, how do you build community? How do you turn it into content? How do you turn it into commerce, right? Those are the three, that's the wheel, right? And right now, you know, we're community. Right, we have a amazing, like we're great at creating content, right? We're like the masters of culture, but what we lack because we don't have access a lot of times, or we haven't put it all together, is the commerce, and that's the power, that's the engine that keeps building community and content. And so what we have to do is continue to keep the community tight so that we can produce the right content, whether that's a product, service, whatever it is, right? And then monetize it. And monetizing it is going to be the capital, even though we don't like the way the system is built right now. We can't change it until we own the capital part of it, right? And so that's what I got to say about that.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, for sure. Coming back to you, Ntsiki, who has played the biggest role in your success as a producer, and what doors of opportunity have they opened for you?
I think looking at the people who have helped in opening doors for me, Tracie earlier spoke about knowing what you want and actually directing your energy into what you want. I think that for me played a big role, that I was clear of what I wanted from the beginning. From being a student, I was clear that I wanted to start my own business. So with that knowledge, everything I did, it was based on how is it going to help me get to where I want to go. So much so, even when I was working, employed as a winemaker, I knew that I'm employed as a winemaker, but I made sure that my job and the duties were not only ending in winemaking. I was involved in marketing. I was involved in accounts. I was basically dealing with clients to go ask for them to pay the company, or I have to send them invoices, things that I was not trained in, but I made sure that I go to the accounts person, like, teach me, how do you do this? So I made sure that I did all those things. And that exposure, it helped me. Again, I spoke earlier about building the social capital. It helped me because I met different people. I spoke to different people, and each and every person I met, I always asked a question. What is it that made them who they are? How did they get to where they are? And what is one advice they could give me? At that moment, I hadn't started the company, but it was trying to put together those things that I want. And I think after doing a lot of, because I started off as doing a lot of marketing for the company, I met people, I met importers. And one of my main importer is Wine for the World in New York. That is the person when I said, I'm going to be starting the company. Financially, like, I didn't have money. So the first encounter for me to meet her, it was when she wanted someone to do a collaboration with an American winemaker. And so she got me, and I was like, I'm in, I'll do this. And I did that. Got introduced to the American winemaker, it was Helen Keplinger. We did a collaboration wine. It was sold in the US. And then from that step, I was like, I'm going to be starting my own brand. And Mika, Wine for the World, she was like, I was like, you know that I don't have enough funds, right? So she had to, that was again, because of the being in the network that I've built and also understanding my vision and being aligned with the person. So she managed to trust me and deposit money for production upfront. So buying the stock that is not there. And I produce the stock and sell. So that's how it all started. And I learned that even I had to go to the suppliers and say, listen, I need bottles, I need corks, but I'll only pay you in 6 months. So, like, honestly, it was because I had things that I had learned again from my previous job was whenever we were in debt, the supplier will call wanting for their money and the people will duck and dive. And one thing I learned was to be honest and be clear. And I used to be the one to say to the supplier, listen, we do not have money, but I promise you, I'm going to try and get your money. That wasn't my position to do that. But I was like, I'm going to do it. So much so that helped me when I was starting my company. I'm like, listen, guys, I'm starting, I need bottles, I need this, but I'm not going to be able to pay you right now. But they trusted me because they knew how I've been operating. So they're like, okay, fine, 6 months, okay, fine. You can go ahead, we'll give you the bottle, we'll give you this, because it was the trust we have built. So there's lots of people actually who've played a role and opened those doors, whether they were aware or not aware.
Yeah, yeah. I like when you're talking about like essentially your network is equivalent to your net worth, and asking the right questions when you're in front of individuals, and that alone can grant you access to equity. That's beautiful. Jomaree had mentioned something about how we are the culture. I don't know if you ever had Harlem, a beer from Harlem Brewery, but the artwork on the cans, it's just, there's so much culture and so much like love and so much vibe that goes on there. Celeste, how can we use our culture to carve out equity in this industry?
Well, for me, there's a lot of discussion going on right now about what is it, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And right now here in North Carolina, there's a whole program called Many Faces, which is focused on making sure that Black and brown people have access to the brewing industry. And it was started by Town Brewing Company in Charlotte, North Carolina. Brian started the program. And I think those are great initiatives. I'll be there this weekend with about 10 aspiring brewers or individuals that are interested in brewing. My focus, and what I've heard many of you say, is ownership. Helps to have the skills in the industry, but actually owning breweries. I mean, owning a brewery is a great idea. Owning a distillery is a great idea, but I think where you're able to have a lot of impact, not all of it, is when you actually own a brewery. And if you can own one in your community, and when I say community, I'm thinking, you know, there's a guy by the name of Lloyd Williams, who's the Chamber of Commerce president in Harlem, who talks about the Harlems of the world. And those are communities all over our country that have some of the same opportunities and challenges. So I think the equity piece for me is definitely getting the basic skills, whatever certifications, if you can, although most of the brewers I know don't have any certifications, but they have had the apprenticeship-like training that have made them some of the most awesome brewers in America and in the world. But I think the ownership piece to me is very important. So for us, looking at, you know, the supply chain, whether it's owning a distributorship, being able to help brewers and distillers and winemakers like us get to the market. It's a 3-tier system in a lot of places. So you not only have to, with the alcoholic beverages, you've got to have certifications and you've got to have licensing in every state that you might want to distribute in. And the only way you can do that is to get distribution. So we've got to have some distributors that control the markets that we believe we need to be in as brands. We've got to own breweries that make and produce a product. We've got to own tap rooms and bars. So we need to do all that we can, as this discussion relates to get us in the full supply chain of activities. So our big focus, and I think what many of us have said on this panel, is that we definitely want people to get the skills. If that can get connected to ownership of a brewery or a distillery or a winery, that's really important, because I think, when I look at our communities, like here in Rocky Mountain, and even when I moved to Harlem 28 years ago, there were not a lot of places for us to go to enjoy a good meal, to have a beer or a cocktail or whatever our choice beverage is, and to, more importantly, have a conversation. And that is what I see when I travel to brewery after brewery, distillery, wineries. People have an opportunity to talk. And what comes out of that, as we know, are amazing connections that lead to possibilities we never imagined. We've got to have the place. So I think for me, getting them, yes, trained, and getting that skills, whether it's home brewing or just diving right into the brew house, as my partner Brianna was able to do with our collaboration brewery here. We've got to eventually look at what role do breweries and distilleries play as anchors in our communities that allow us to see the change that we're talking about, that we need economically. So I think some part of that for me is looking at, as we've touched on, how do we get to the commerce? How do we get to, that manufacturing piece that sells, the revenues that support the communities within these industries. So that's a piece that I think is important. We've discussed that a few times throughout this conversation, but I get really excited about how do we take our abandoned downtown here in Rocky Mountain and actually put a distillery there, put a brewery there, a wine bar there, or whatever, as many communities around us have done. How do we reimagine our communities in a way that embraces this culture?
I think
we are.
There's a lot of space. There's a lot of people here in this space that can definitely, make those things possible. Clyde, how do you implement? Well, what do you implement in your day-to-day outside of your positions with your brand to guarantee or to help solidify equity for the next generation of our industry?
Well, the main thing is I want to continue to kind of show people that what's important is for everybody to have their own agency and to be free from whatever preconceived expectations they're supposed to have, to challenge themselves to be themselves and to actually seek what they want and who they are, because the real freedom is having your own agency, that you're able to move the way you want to move. So part of that is showing by example of how to move, or when people ask me, how do I do this? And just to go with them or direct them on ways to make different moves so that they can fulfill their destiny. Their destiny necessarily has to be, because a lot of, the lack of a better term, a lot of us look at success is equal to whiteness. And it's not about whiteness. It's about success is how you define yourself. I don't have to be like ex-white spirit entrepreneur. That's not my goal, to be what he has, because what he has is not what I want. The level of freedom I want can't be ascertained by just doing it a way a white person would do it, or having the things that white people have. So I've created what is happiness and what is agency for myself. And And if people can see people who are doing that and living in that way and are being successful at the same time, that there makes space for them. So I'm trying to make space for everybody to live freely. And that's really the part that that I'm trying to do, and also try to break the kind of the colonization mentality that the people who are doing the work, which most times we're doing the work, to get paid the least. You know what I mean? We have to be demanding that as people who are essential to the experience, you know, get paid what we're supposed to get paid. Not because I'm worth what you say it's worth, I'm worth what I say it's worth. And to live in that, and that's hard for people to live in, and that's where I try to place myself at.
And we appreciate you for it, Clyde. I mean, I appreciate all you guys. I appreciate all you guys. I thank you guys for being here. And again, thank you guys for everything you're doing for our industry and in ways of carving out equity for the next generation. So this next person I have up is Jackie Summers. So Jackie is an author, public speaker, and entrepreneur. He's a founder of Jack from Brooklyn, and the creator of Sorrel Liquor. Jack, I didn't forget about you, brother. I just figured there's no one better on the panel to recap what's been happening, what we've just experienced with your tenure in the industry and all the spaces that you occupy. Tell me, how do we move forward, not just together, but open it up to the world so it can be a movement that is for Black and brown individuals, but it's a communal effort in efforts to make our industry great or greater.
So the first thing I want to say is y'all are all dope and you do dope shit. And I love seeing everyone out here doing their thing. It is everything. It is everything to see my people out there making strides and changes. There are several things that equity means from my perspective, 3 in particular. The first is, as you said at the outset, equity is different from equality, and that equity recognizes that we're not all starting from the same place. Like, to be clear, as Josh will tell you, we've been here. We've been here from the beginning. We started cocktail culture. We started dive bar culture. In this country, the people who were not making their own food, they weren't making their own drinks either. That was us. So that's the first thing, is understanding that this isn't something that's new to us. We've been here from the beginning, but we were cut out of being able to monetize and profit from our labor, from our skills, from our abilities. So that's the first thing, is understanding that there was systemic barriers put in place that held us back. So we need, it's the same thing that they're doing right now with Simone Biles. Like, we've been so far ahead of the game that they had to set us back in order for everyone else just to keep pace. That's number one, is understanding that we're not all starting from the same place. So we actually are looking to do things in a way that is not like, oh, you get one, everyone gets one. Nah, we get more than one. We've been here from the beginning. Number 2 is, I'm gonna agree with Celeste, and I'm gonna say, you gotta own something. Ownership is really, really important. If you don't own it, it owns you. And if you can't own it, own a piece of it. And if you can't own a piece of it, work for somebody who owns it that looks like us. I said this 3 years ago, and I'm gonna stick by it. In 1821, 99% of Black people in this country work for a white person. How many of us are working for a white person? It's time for that to change. And I'm gonna get with Clyde and Jomaree on this. Nothing is harder as the Black entrepreneur than raising capital. That is the biggest thing that needs to change. They believe in your ideas and they see your education, but there's this pervasive mentality that Black people can't own and run our own companies. They treat us like we're children. In this country, the top 500 CEOs, there are more CEOs named Mike than there are Black CEOs. So I don't give a damn about equity and inclusion courses anymore. Like they could do all the equity and inclusion courses that they want until they make systemic change at the top. And here's the beauty of all this. We talk about systemic and institutional discrimination. Systems are created and maintained by people. Should they be so inclined, systems can be dismantled and recreated by people, not 100 years from now, not a decade from now, not in another generation, today. That shit can change today if folks are so inclined. And one of the beautiful parts is we got people out here proving that it is not just feasible, it is in their best interests to fund people like us. We work in what is traditionally called the old boys network, but Fawn Weaver and Uncle Neil's done proved you gotta be old, you don't gotta be boys, you don't gotta be white to sell hundreds of thousands of cases if you know what you're doing. And we have known what we're doing from the beginning. The last point I'm gonna say is, I'm gonna get with Clyde on this one. Our model of success is different. Yes, we work in this system that is capitalistic by nature that we didn't create, but our model is not to succeed, to accumulate. Our model is not about ourselves. Our model is to succeed, to distribute. Our model is to succeed so we can go, who in the community needs a hand? Our model is to succeed and go, who else can I help up as I'm going up myself? So if I'm climbing, we all climb. And if I've got 10, you got 5. And if I got a dime, you got a nickel. And if there's some way that I can help anyone, any of us, with connections, with helping get financing, with figuring out supply chains, with making sure folks get management training, yo, we're here for each other. I do well when we do well. It is all about us, and it's never about any one of us.
And Jackie, we're not building no spaceships.
No, no. I'm always amazed when people say burn it down. Yo, I can't burn down the house I live in. I'd be homeless. We built this country. We built its wealth. We brought our knowledge. We brought our labor. Like, I'm here for mine. I'm here for mine.
Well,
and if I get mine, everyone else gets theirs too.
Indeed.
Well said, well said. And I mean, he is an author, right? So I can't really follow his words. That was very well spoken, Jackie. Thank everyone for coming out, being present. I appreciate everyone that's a part of this panel. I thank Tales of the Cocktail for the opportunity. More than that, this is not something that stops here. We're going to have side conversations where all the resources that were provided, we spoke of this afternoon, we can create and continue to build together. Yeah, that's it, man. It's a wrap. I guess we will open it up for live Q&A or at the time. How's that go? I'm not sure. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.